limited board subject matter jurisdiction. Public comment periods are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the total amount of time for public comment is 15 minutes. Persons participating by way of video conference or teleconference shall ensure their audio is muted at all times except when the board chair announces public comment periods. At those designated times, members of the public wishing to speak shall enable their audio and state their name for the record. When multiple members of the public wish to speak, the clerk will determine the order of speakers and announce their names accordingly. To ensure proper conduct, the board reserves the right to mute the audio and video of any member of the public violating generally accepted principles and decorum of official public meetings.
Great, thank you. So I know we have one card so far, and that is from Mr. Charles Sharp. Morning, Charles.
Good morning, Charles Sharp, Oregon House. Today, I would like to thank Director Matthews for his help in securing all of the water district's water for the foothill farmers. Last year, this board voted 4-3 to grant the North Yuba Water District $100,000 for some study. Director Matthews was one of the 3 no votes. I realized it would only take 1 vote more to go the other way. I pursued that notion, and around April or May, the Water District realized it would be getting no more support from the agency. This was the beginning of the end for this Water District and what they were doing. Director Matthews went even further when, at his own expense, he supported the candidates running against the incumbents who only wanted to sell the district's water. This unacceptable effort to sell the district's water was for more than the Yuba Water Agency's yearly budget for grants. This effort failed, and the incumbents were defeated in part due to Director Matthews' involvement. Director Matthews showed that he well understands the agency's mission to value preserving and protecting the resources for our communities. Director Hasty, who will not be on this board next year, has done an amazing job representing the Yuba Water Agency in the Northern California water world. Although I know little of this world, I know that Director Hasty is well known and well regarded. Perhaps it might behoove the agency to carve out a new job, Yuba Water Agency Ambassador at Large, so Director Hasty could continue representing the agency's interests. As the scarcity of water in California impacts more and more people, such representation could serve the agency well. Thank you for your time today.
Great. Thank you, Charles. Okay, any additional public comment in the room? I don't see any on Zoom either. So with that, we will move on to the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Any additional board comment or questions? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Fuhr?
Yes.
Director Hasty?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Matthews?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Blazier?
Yes.
Director Fletcher is absent.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to move on to discussion items, and we are going to postpone item 3 as Senator Nielsen is not here yet, and we'll take up that item when he arrives. So moving on to item 4, consider adopting resolution 2022-19, approving restated section 125 flexible benefits plan and approval of amendment to the benefits policy. Teresa.
So moved.
Second. Good morning. Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay. Seeing none, thank you for being ready to present. And roll call vote, please.
Can I confirm the first was from Director Vasquez and the second from Director Hasty?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Matthews?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Hasty?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Fuhr?
Yes.
Director Blazier?
Yes.
And Director Fletcher is absent.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, consider adoption of the strategic plan updated for the 2023-2027 calendar years. Morning, Terry.
I wanted to go really fast so that.
What you got?
So after at least 8 different meetings with the board, public meetings over this year, I really wanted to say something profound about the strategic plan. Sorry, I couldn't come up with anything except for the fact that, wow, thank you. Thank you for putting so much time and thought into our strategic plan. As you know, it's the kind of guiding policy that you have, that we have to bring you decisions over the next 5 years. And as you know, the things we work on, they're long-term big projects that take years and years and years. And so it's really important that we set that guiding principle early on so that it can be changed, but at least the board knows what they're changing it from. So you have met a number of times on this. We've gotten a lot of input from the board. Our employees have given input. Our management team has given input. We've had it up on the website for the past 2 weeks. And of course, every public meeting we've had about it, we've invited input. And so now you have what we think is the final draft for your consideration today. I'm happy to take any questions. And of course, I would hope that there are members of the public that would like to comment.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Any public comment on this item?
Good morning, Kelly McNally, Brownsville Irrigation District. I just want to say thank you for involving the public on this and as well as the member units. As a representative of one of the 8 member units, I appreciate that water supply remains at the top of the strategic plan. And also as a resident of Yuba County, I greatly appreciate that flood risk reduction is also a top priority of this board. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, any comments from the board?
I just want to thank Terry for putting us, I don't want to say putting it through it, but it's been fantastic. And I think it's a really good strategic plan and outlines the future for the agency that is totally exciting and continues changing the world in Yuba County. So thanks.
Is that a first?
I'll move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Director Hasty?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Fuhr?
Yeah.
Director Fletcher is absent. Director Blazier?
Yes.
Director Matthews?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Kind of seems anticlimactic after all that work, but it's appreciated. Thank you. Next, moving on to item 6, review of financial statements and details for General Power Systems Fund for October 2022 and consider recommending approval of the final budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023 and projected budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. This matter was recommended for approval by the ABP committee on December 6th, 2022. Morning, Curtis.
Good morning. We're moving right along. We were excited to get to the budget item this morning, I can tell. All right, so we'll jump right in. Right, absolutely.
Yes.
To give an overview of my approach to the budget, we'll start with the most recent set of monthly financials that we have, which will be through October 31st, 2022. Typically in December, we have the November financials available to us, but this year CAISO changed their settlement process, so it takes us a little bit longer to recognize our revenue, which means November was incomplete given today is just the 20th of December. So ABP committee, you saw these October financials already, so I'll move quickly through those. Timing this year is very good because we just had the audit in the last meeting, so that got us through June 30th, 2022. And then the monthly financials up through October. And I hope that that adequately supports the decision for the final budget through the rest of this fiscal year. But we'll jump right in. We'll start with the agency-wide summary sheet. This is where I try to get all the information onto just one piece of paper. So if you look at one thing, this gives you all the detail that you might need. To give the folks in the room that may be looking at this for the first time kind of lay of the land from left to right, we have a couple of prior year budget versus actuals. We're going to focus our attention on the far right column. Those are actuals through October 31st, 2022. From top to bottom, we'll start out with revenue, the Power Systems Fund, and the General Fund. In the middle, we'll have expenses, again, Power Systems Fund, General Fund. We'll combine those expenses, which will give us our net effect on reserves. Now we'll go down that far right column. the actuals through October 2022, and Power Systems were at 58 million. We had an incredibly strong September. That 58 million versus our budget of 81.9 million is well ahead of pace. A little foreshadowing, November was much quieter. It was kind of back to normal in November. But here in December, we're seeing elevated prices due to natural gas issues. They're starting to see some shortages. So our prices have been much higher in December than we're used to seeing. So a little foreshadowing there. On the general fund side, we're at 9.8 million versus a budget of 25.2 million. I will remind that we budget that general fund revenue rather aggressively. We'll dive into that a little more detail as we go through the budget. But the bulk of the general fund revenue is incoming grant revenue, which is offsetting some project expenses. So I tend to front load that. We'll come in under budget and revenue, and then as a partner to that will come in under budget on the expense side as well, but it is front loaded. All told, we're at 67.9 million in revenue against a budget of 107 million. So we're well on our way, thanks to the abnormally strong power system revenue thus far this year. Moving down to expenses, and power systems were at 9.1 million against a budget of 36.9 million. It's a slower start at the beginning of the fiscal year in power systems. That's by design. It's relatively hands off the units in the months of July, August, and this year, September. Those are our high price months, so we're not going to take a unit down and do our maintenance then. We're going to do it in October in the case of Narrows. And then right now in December, we have the Colgate units down for their annual outages. So these financials being through October, you'll see an increase in expenses, particularly in the month of December when we look at those financials. On the general fund side, we're at 14.4 million against a budget of 57.9 million. Again, the front loaded, we have, I think we're up to 12 or 13 different incoming grants that we're managing, each one of those with front loaded project budgets. So the general fund budget looks like it's a little behind pace. Another factor of general fund being a little bit behind pace is we do have the $10 million community impact grant program. Because that relies on external schedules, we tend to front load that as well. So that when it does come time to reimburse those partners, when those scopes of work are complete, after those grant agreements are approved, we're not coming for a budget adjustment just because we misallocated which budget year we put it in. So it's front loaded and we can get the reimbursement dollars into our partners' hands as quickly as possible. All told, agency combined expense were at 23.5 million against a budget of 94.9 million. We tend to leave roughly 15% on the table. That's kind of contingency and a product of front loading. We seem to be on that pace again this year. Net effect on reserves through October 31st, we're at 44.4 million against our original budget of 12.1 million. Again, that's on really the shoulders of power system, abnormally high revenue, and then the slow start to expenses in power systems. Typically, I stand here and I tell you we're going to give some of that back through the Colgate outages, but with strong December pricing, I can't say that with a straight face this year.
You can smile.
All right, so power system revenue, dive a little bit deeper here. October revenue up compared to prior year on strong pricing. It's not generation, obviously, but we've been able to pack the generation we do have into those high price hours. I gave you a little foreshadowing of November. November is going to look like past November's. December, I think we'll see a bit of an uptick, even with we had a couple of forced outages, but prices have been so high that I think we're going to see a higher than typical December.
Curtis, with the cold wave coming, do we expect that continued high price in natural gas through most of the winter?
I think we're going to see continued high prices in natural gas because they're already running low on their reserves. The reserves look like what they should look like in February, and it's December. So typically this is the amount of reserves that we have coming out of peak demand, not going into peak demand.
Right.
A quick pie chart here just to show the sources of power systems revenue. And really what we're looking at there is RA, just to demonstrate how impactful RA has been, as we've seen those prices increase significantly over the last handful of years. In prior year, RA represented about 33% of power systems total revenue. That's just being available. It was getting us 33%. This year so far, we're at 26%. I expect that number to ratchet back up to 33%. What's happening there is I think we've done so well in energy that's taken the lion's share of the portion of the power system revenue. Carbon-free and renewable energy credits are still the icing on the cake, if you will. General fund revenue, nothing to report in October, but some more foreshadowing here in November. We were able to send along the second 50% of the groundwater substitution, that invoice to DWR, and that was paid. And then consequently, the member units were also paid their share of that. We are currently working on retention release invoices. We have final accounting, so we'll see even more water transfer revenue in December. So the next 2 months, this chart will be worth looking at. Back to expenses. So we're looking at the 5.3 million here in October. That prior year spike there, that's our Our House sediment removal project. That was roughly a $6 million project on its own. So that creates the outlier when we're looking at the history of October's. Also in October, we moved the Narrows 2 outage in October, which is typically in November. So when we look at the November financials, I anticipate that November will look more like fiscal year 2021 than it did 2022, just roughly where I think November expenses will come in. December, though, I think will look like last year. In December, we will see again for the second year, we are on the process of the quarterly disbursements for the Yuba County flood risk reduction grant. That was the 3.5 million that escalated at 2% a year. They bill quarterly, so we saw that in September. We'll see it again in December. So we see this kind of upward trend in December. That's what caused it, and I think it will continue on. This chart here is stacking our expenses. So the total bar is total agency expenses. This lime green are kind of internal agency expenses, if you will. The blue are the expenses related to the Community Impact Grant Program, just to show the portion of the expenses. In September, we had a higher portion of expenses related to the Community Impact Grant Program and those flood risk reduction investments. That's that quarterly payment to the county I was talking about. So we're going to see that similar bar in December. Overall, I think the bar is going to be a little bit higher because not only do we have that quarterly disbursement, we have both Colgate outages. So I think overall the bar is going to be higher. But in November, I think the overall expenses will be a little bit lower. Again, we don't have the Narrows 2 outage. And there was not a lot of Community Impact Grant disbursement activity in the month of November. Moving on to monthly results. So what this chart is doing is plotting 2 data points per month. Revenue in blue, expenses are in red. Typically through the fall, through roughly January, we see expenses get real close to the revenue line, if not exceed the revenue line with our annual outages. But given the revenue year that we've had, we have not seen that yet this year. So in October, for example, at 9.6 million against expenses of 5.4 million. If we look back to the month of July, we had 20.6 million. So that's 50% of the water transfer plus a really good power system revenue month. Those really low expenses, we talked about power system being quiet early on in the year. Expenses were only at 3.7 million. So that's demonstrating what we're talking about there. In November, I know revenue will be down to somewhere around 8 million. So kind of falling back to earth a little bit. I still think that will be above expenses. And then we've been talking about December revenue. So I think that's also going to clear expenses. A quick chart to show kind of rolling reserves. So at any given month, what would be contributing to our reserve policy? We started with an estimate of 12.1. Over budget and revenue, under budget and expenses, we're at 44.4. And on the next slide, I think, if I remember correctly, yes. So the reserves, and this was timely after finalizing the audit in the last meeting. We have a reserve target of 200 million. It's a couple of years old as far as the mechanics to arrive at 200 million. So it will be something that we're revisiting. But we're at 231. It's not showing up there, so I'll let you know. That's 231 million, which is higher than 200.
It's nice when your reserves blow past the chart.
Right. We're breaking my charts. It's a new challenge, and I accept it. So we're at 231, roughly 232 if we round up, plus the 44 million. That's the activity through October. So we're roughly 276 as we stand here today, as we stood here on Halloween. Let's just pretend. But the rest of the columns here, so what we're doing is demonstrating basically liquidity using the same chart. So we're starting at the bottom and we'll work our way up. This $21 million number, that's the portion of our reserves that's loaned out, not cash on hand. So it's something to bear in mind. The next section here is 53.7 million. That's what we designated or we termed our no-touch reserves in our last reserve policy refresh. Those are things like the operating reserve and the emergency reserves. That's the keep everybody employed, fix what broke. It's that kind of rainy day fund that we don't really want to have burning a hole in our pocket. So we designate that as a no-touch reserve, and we don't look at that as particularly liquid, even though technically it is. But we're trying to ignore that. The balance here, 157.2, that's effectively our sinking fund that's tied to our capital improvement project worksheets, both in power systems and general fund. That includes all of the large capital projects that we've identified and we have on the schedule for at least the next 5 years. And as you guys know, we're trying to push those capital improvement plans to a 10-year planning horizon. I think that's going to be really helpful. But that's the one-to-one relationship there. That wraps up financials. I'll do a quick pause just for any questions on financials to date before we jump in and take a look at some adjustments for this year's budget.
What's your expectation, Curtis, for the next? We've got a couple of months left, so I'm guessing that we're at 44 today. That you expect to break 50 in reserves?
Probably.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think that's probably safe.
Thanks.
Just because power prices don't seem like they're trending down, right? They're trending up. And a lot of the projects that we are making heavy progress on are grant funded. So we're seeing the offset from the incoming grant revenue that we've been able to obtain.
Any additional questions from the board? Okay.
Okay, perfect. So we'll move on to taking a look at the budget for the rest of the year. I focus on the trends for a couple of reasons. Our operating expenses, our routine operating expenses, those are not the expenses that really fluctuate and are moving the needle from budget year to budget year. We will pull up the long range forecast here in a bit and we'll demonstrate that. What really moves the needle in the water agency's budget are the large individually scoped capital projects or the non-routine projects or those the community impact grant program. It's stuff that we could really individually look at. And those are the schedules that we want to focus on to make sure that we have the budgets in the right year. And we're planning for those. So we'll look at trends for the rest of this. And when we see deviations, I'd like to call those out and kind of explain why and bring these numbers to life. We'll start with revenue and we'll start with power systems and we'll look at some of the fluctuations. Operating revenue, more or less we know the story there. We have elevated pricing both in RA and just energy as a whole, explaining our kind of 15% increase from actuals into final budget for FY2023. That revenue budget is unchanged from the June version of this. Non-operating revenue, we have this spike here of 1.7 million. Non-operating revenue in power systems is not really important. They are generating power. Non-operating revenue, that 1.7 was FEMA storm damage reimbursement. It took forever to get, which is why it was in fiscal year 2021, even though the damage was in 2017. But that's the outlier. That's the reason for the spike. So we're not concerned when we see the 91% decrease in actuals of FY 2022. This does not cause for concern. On the general fund side, operating revenue being water sales. So that's explaining how those numbers are fluctuating. If you guys remember last year, we had an opportunity to conduct quite a bit of surface water transfer. That's your 51.9 million. And that's why there's a 78% decrease in this budget year. Non-operating revenue is much more important in general fund. That's where our incoming grant revenue is tracked. That's also where our interest income is tracked. As rates rise, that will be even more important. So non-operating revenue is where we focus our attention. We'll look at actuals at 2.5 million and then a 412% increase to 12.8 million. That's another sign of that front loading the incoming grant revenue budget. That'll come in under budget, and the expenses related will come in under budget. But again, on the general fund side of revenue, these numbers are unchanged from the June version. We will look at power system expenses now. I have notes. I'm going to use them for the first time. There we go. So we'll look at maintenance. First of all, there's some fluctuations there, particularly in fiscal year 2022. We saw a 50% increase from 2021 up to 17.7 million. That's another place where we see the Our House sediment removal project. It's sediment removal. We don't really have a capital asset at the end of that, but it was a $6 million project. So it spikes the maintenance expenses. It raises a bit of a red flag when you see maintenance expenses increase at 50%, but that's the story behind that, and we'll explain that. So that then also explains the 19% decrease to 14.3 million. We typically come in a little under budget and maintenance expenses as well. So I think the decrease will be even greater than that. We will jump down, and so we see the Our House sediment removal project reflect itself in overall total operating expenses as well. So 24.5 up from 18.1, and then back down to 21.8. That's your sediment removal project, and that really goes to show, because we look at admin in general relatively flat from 3.8 to 4.5 over the last 4 years, and operations from 2.2 to 3 million over the last 4 years. Our operating expenses are relatively flat. It's those one-off projects that really are the items that we focus on when we're going through the budget. Capital projects, we're at 77% increase in the budget from 11.5 to 20.4. We're okay with increases in capital projects. Those are investments into ourselves, into our assets to keep them running in tip-top shape. And we also have some really big capital projects on the horizon. In the $20.4 million number are items like continuing to work on the tunnel outage, the pinstock shutoff valve, the power system headquarters. These are really large projects that we've been working on for years that are now showing themselves in the budget and explaining that 77% increase. Again, we'll come in under budget of that too. We are conservative in the way we budget. Moving on to general fund expenses, the biggest one to look at here, 22,851% increase in capital projects in general fund. These are the land purchases that we made last year, the Blue Point Mine property. We don't do that every year. So that's your outlier there. That's why we're down another 59%, down to 2.2 million. 2.2 million, though, is still high if you go back and look at the prior 2 fiscal years. So what's in that 2.2 million are some IT infrastructure projects. As you know, in 2015 and 2016, we really ramped up on our IT infrastructure, preparing for May 1st, 2016, obviously. But that's now been 6-7 years. And in the IT world, that means all that stuff is obsolete and needs to be replaced. So we're going back through to make sure that our IT infrastructure is right-sized for who we are today. Other items worth calling out, we'll go back in time here to fiscal year 2021. We'll look at flood risk reduction. We were up to 26.6 million, and then we've come back down 60% to 10.5 million. Remember, in that 26.6 million was this roughly 17 million write-off related to the Plumas Lake workout. Successful workout, but that's where it shows our contribution is in that $26.6 million number. The then 51% increase from 10.5 million up to 15.9 million in flood risk reduction is going to be grant activity. The FERO program, FCO, all of that lives in flood risk reduction. Other big kind of outliers to call out for this budget: in fishery enhancement, we have a 181% increase from 3.7 to 10.5 million in fishery enhancement. That's representing getting close to 100% design on the South Fish Screen and potentially getting closer to construction. So the budget's available there in fishery enhancement if we can get to that point. So the increase then overall, this is worth calling out, from 44.9 actuals for fiscal year 2022, up 27% to 56.9, almost 57 million. Again, remember that there's some front-loaded budgets. This is comparing actuals versus a budget. So I don't expect a 27% increase actuals versus actuals because we're going to leave some budget on the table. So I think that's worth calling out there.
Curtis, go back to administration. Administration, you said the prior one, it was fairly flat. And all of a sudden I see going 8 to 11. What's the difference between the two administrations?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's actually just dive in and look at that. Let me see that. Perfect. So we came in, so we've come in under budget in prior year because it looks like the budget's now flat. We're looking at 3 years of budget here, or we're looking at proposed, final, and then projected budget at 11. We are going to see some increases in administration on the general fund side. The difference between general fund and power systems are salaries and benefits for the bulk of the general fund staff lives in administration. On the power system side, because they're more project related, we're able to allocate those across the actual projects. So you see it in Colgate maintenance or Narrows 2 capital project. You don't see it all bundled up in an A&G administration and general section. So that's contributing to the increase. Just IT equipment as a whole, although it's allocated between both funds, I know that overall that's been increasing. So we see the $663,000 number, that's general funds portion of it. I know that that's higher than prior years. We have numbers that have come down, OPEB funding. We don't have to contribute as much going forward. That $100,000 number is lower than in prior years because we're 110% plus funded. So that's what I have to kind of answer your question with, Charlie, is we came in under budget in prior years. We have a few more bodies on the general fund side as they've been staffing up recently. Power systems staffed up more in 2016, 2017.
Thank you.
I think that was it. Yep. So a couple of things I just want to call your attention to that were included in the packet. Again, on the concept that it's really the large projects that move the needle in our budget. The budget is supported by these large project worksheets. This is extracting all of those big individually scoped projects and putting them on one piece of paper instead of having to go through the income statement and finding which line item they are. This is calling them out. So we touched on South Fish Green, 7.2 million. That's related to 10.5 million in fishery enhancement. That's why that number was so elevated when we were looking at the trends.
Curtis, excuse me. Is that the full cost of the South Fish Green? Because normally the agency in the fisheries for the South system, we pay 50% of it and then they pay us back. So is that the full and then we hope to get paid back? Okay.
That's right.
I just wanted to make sure that was still a policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through the chair, is that available, that spreadsheet on?
It's okay.
In a PDF format or anything?
Yeah, this one here is included in the agenda packet. And I can send it out separately if you're interested.
It's okay.
More of a lay of the land here on what this sheet is doing. We're looking at the general fund once we have the project name here, the core mission area, so water resources, fisheries, so we can connect that to the income statement. We can connect that to the strategic plan. So it makes a lot of sense and everything's connected. Estimated remaining costs, this is another reason I put this sheet together, is in the budget, you can identify the 7.2 million for the fish screen. But if we're going to approve this year's budget, I want to give a glimpse on what the total project cost is remaining. It's particularly important if, which one is this? Park Spillway. I mean, that's obviously one. But any project where it has some a smaller cost in the current year for something like engineering design when construction is much larger in future years, we capture the estimated remaining costs on this sheet just to give you a sense. And then we also include the second year. That's what we've termed the projected budget. So that's how this sheet is organized. Power Systems has the same sheet. Instead of core mission area, it's by location and system. Colgate units being Colgate Unit 1, Colgate Unit 2, Common Plant. And there's a key at the bottom of it if there's any questions on what those titles are. But same format, estimated remaining cost, current budget, and the projected budget. And if there are no questions, that wraps up the budget adjustment.
Pen stock prep and work cost a little bit more than the warehouse administration.
A little bit.
Any additional questions from the board? Any public comment before I entertain a motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
Okay, have a first. Is there a second? Okay, have a first and a second. Seeing no public comment and no additional board comments or questions, roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Fuhr,
Yes.
Director Blazer,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director Fletcher is absent, Director Hasty.
Yes.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to item 7, consider ratifying the agency staff's decision to terminate the amended and restarted energy market services agreement between the agency and Shell dated July 1st, 2018, and send a termination notice of the agreement as of December 31st, 2023. Morning, Willie.
Hey, good morning. So the agreement with Shell Energy for scheduling coordinator services has a unique termination clause. Basically, any December 31st, either party can give notice to the other party that they want to terminate the agreement the following December 31st. So you basically have a year of operation between notice and termination. To give ourselves a range of alternatives on how we move forward with scheduling coordinator services, we asked you all to develop an energy ad hoc advisory committee, which we met with last week. And we basically posed the question. We recommended that we give this termination notice so that all options for scheduling coordinator services are on the table in 2023, letting you know that we will come back to you with a recommended action early in 2023 and work towards that by the end of 2023. So the ad hoc unanimously supported staff's recommendation to do so. So we went ahead and sent the termination notice to Shell late last week. So this action would ratify that decision to give Shell notice. So moved.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any additional public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Director Blazer,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director Hasty,
Yes.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Fuhr,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
and Director Fletcher is absent.
Okay, great. Next, we are going to move on to item 8, since I don't see Senator Nielsen here quite yet. So Brent, will you join me down at the podium?
Sure.
There you go. Got it.
Really going to test my reading skills today. Proclamation recognizing Brent Hasty for 8 years of dedicated service as a director to the Yuba Water Agency. Whereas Brent Hasty was elected by the people of Yuba County in 2014 as the South Division Director of the Yuba County Water Agency. And whereas during his time on the board of directors, Brent championed water education efforts, served as the agency's representative, as a member of the Northern California Water Association and the Association of California Water Agencies, where he served as president in 2018 and 2019, and served on the executive committee of the Aqua JPIA. And whereas during his tenure, Brent successfully served on the administration, budget, and personnel committee, the project operations and development committee, and several ad hoc committees where his vision and leadership guided a range of topics from agency financials and personnel changes to community impact grants and loans. And whereas Brent's countless contributions to the Yuba Water Agency earned the respect and appreciation of his fellow board members, agency staff, the community, and many people throughout California, his selfless work ethic always led him to place the people of Yuba County first and foremost. And now, therefore, let it be known that this proclamation was duly passed, I'm sure will be duly passed, by the Board of Directors of the Yuba Water Agency at a regular meeting held December 20th, 2022, and recognizes Brent Hasty for his extraordinary service to the people of Yuba County. So thank you, Brent. You can talk here, you can talk up from the dais, whichever you prefer.
I'll take talk from the dais. That's where I've been for the last 2 years.
Great. So Brent, do you want the first word or the last word?
The last.
Okay, the last. So any public comment on this agenda item?
say, Brent, I remember being in this room in 1997, as you were a board of supervisor, my very first contract renewal for recology, and you were tough then, but it has been nothing but a joy to work really with you now, and it's very exciting. I'm glad we had that coffee. I'm glad you told me this is the best place in the world to work, because you were right. And I know that you're going on to more and more because we're too young. We have to keep going, and just appreciate everything you've done. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Dee Dee Cordell, Communications Manager for Yuba-Sutter and proud Marysville Rotarian. Brent, I have probably more than everybody wants to hear from me to say, but I just want to thank you. I want to thank you because you have been such an incredible supporter of me, of my team, and of the work that we do, and we really appreciate it. And it's been a joy to work with you. You've been on the Communications Committee, and of course, all of our efforts and dreaming with water education, and it would not be where it is today if it wasn't for you and your vision. But of course, most of all, I want to thank you for your vision and your passion for this community, because that is why I am here. And I would not have this job if you hadn't convinced me with your passion. You literally ignited something in me, a passion and a hope for this community that was long gone. And I thought it was dead and buried. And you reignited that. And I cannot imagine anyone else having the impact that you've had on my hope for this community. And so I want to thank you for that. Nobody else could have made me, come to tears in a job interview. So thank you for that. It has completely been one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I am so grateful. I love this job, and I would not be here if it was not for you. And one other major thing that has changed in my life because of you is that somehow I went from being somebody who didn't know anything about Rotary to being somebody who drank all the Kool-Aid. Next thing I knew, I was, public relations chair for the entire region. And I don't know how that happened. I'm still not sure how that happened, but I'm pretty sure that it had something to do with you. So thank you for that, and for all of the wonderful inspiration that you bring to this community. I thank you for everything you've done for me personally, and for this agency, and for the people of Yuba County. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Thank you.
Andy Richmond, Settlements Analyst at Yuba-Sutter. I'm just going to kind of echo what Dee Dee said. I also would not be here if it weren't for you, Brenton, strongly encouraging me to take an internship in 2019 when I was working for you down in Plumas Lake. It has been so great to be here, and I didn't even know this place existed if it hadn't been for you. So I just want to say thank you. And it's going to be weird not having you as my boss, because you've been my boss for so long now, but I always appreciate the time, and just thank you. And I also am in Rotary, the Yuba City Club, and that's also because of you as well, Brent. And just thank you for everything.
Thanks, Andy.
Wow. All the women who are brave enough to go first. I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to say that, I just want to say that, Brent, you didn't have anything to do with me coming to Yuba-Sutter. I just wanted you to say that. But you're everything to do with me staying at Yuba-Sutter. You have, in the 8 years that I've had the really great fortune to work with you, you have renewed my faith that local government elected boards can be really high functioning and can be visionary and be true leaders. And so thank you, and to all the board members for doing that for me. Thank you, as everybody has said, for your vision and your leadership. Thanks for your boldness. I do remember you right after being elected, you decided you were going to run for vice president of Aqua, even though the Aqua executive director said, well, maybe you want to give it a year or so or something, a couple of years. But nope, you went for it, which helped to catapult the Yuba-Sutter agency into the statewide limelight in a really positive way, and all of Yuba County into the statewide limelight. Thank you for dragging me along behind you into Aqua. That was one of the best things that you could have done for me in really expanding my knowledge of water and the politics of water. And I really, really appreciate all you've done. So thank you. I hope I still get those calls where you start out with, okay, I probably did something I shouldn't have done, but I just wanted to make sure you knew it. So please, please keep the calls coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darren.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ryan McNally, your Director of Water Resources and Flood Risk Reduction. And I just want to say thank you, Brent, for all your, the vision and leadership you've shown over the years. And I recall in 2015, it's my first or second year at BVID as general manager. We had a conversation that really resonated with me. And it was, as the agency was prepping to come online, the 2016 takeover, you had mentioned how when we're all said and done and when the history books are all written, that there should be no deficiencies in water supply, water delivery, or flood risk reduction in Yuba County. And that really resonated with me. And that it goes to the theme of what we heard before. That's really why I wanted to come to Yuba Water from what I was doing at BVID. And I couldn't thank you enough. So that's my professional thank you. My personal thank you as a landowner in Yuba County. Thank you for all you've done for your constituents, water supply and flood risk reduction especially. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Now I Brownsville Irrigation District. On behalf of BVID, I want to say thank you for your leadership, for your inspiration and dedication to Yuba County over the years. I feel like you've put Yuba County on the map when it comes to water supply and resources, and I immensely thank you for that. And as Willie said, I think that for both Ryan and I don't know that we would be in the spot that we're in if it hadn't been a conversation that he had with you back in 2015. So I appreciate that as well. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Can I go? Sure. All right. Has anyone heard any of these directors say, dream big? Who is that attributed to? Brent Hasty, right? That is not an empty promise or an empty threat or an empty directive. Brent puts his time and effort where that statement lies. How does he do that? Well, prior to 2016, probably when Brent was a supervisor back in the 90s, he realized what would happen in May of 2016 and what this community would be given if managed right when the PG&E power purchase agreement expired. And he put his time and effort behind that with the Aqua vice presidency and then presidency and NACWA. And he didn't just show up to the meetings and, go through an agenda. He worked the room. He worked the relationships. He worked the relationships so much that it's difficult for a general manager to get time with big state leaders because when they think of, and this is a good compliment, when they think of Yuba Water Agency, they don't necessarily think of the general manager. They think of Brent Hasty, and that's great. That's the time and effort Brent put into developing those relationships to ensure that this agency is on the map in statewide resource management, both water and power and flood risk reduction. So, Brent, thank you for that, and thank you for having the vision to invest your time and effort that way. That's my serious part of my statement. Kind of my fun part of the statement is a story that I've told many times, and I'll keep it short. And that is when we were bringing the Blue Forest first program to you, the $1.5 million investment, I think it's $300,000 over 5 years, right? And I was working with the Blue Forest team, and we were putting together the PowerPoint. And this was like, 2018? So what, we're a year and a half out of PG&E. This is all new. We didn't have $230 million in reserves. We maybe had 30 or 40 or 50. And we were asking this board to do something super unique. And I was nervous. And I told the Blue Forest team the day before, I said, excellent presentation. You guys put hard work in this. This is going to be great. I give it a 50-50 shot of approval, right? So we go into this thing and we have the Forest Service up here. We have all these folks up here. This is a great thing. You should approve it. Brent was the chair at the time, and we get through director's comments, and there's, your average supportive comments, and then Brent says, first, I got to say, I don't know how we can. That's what he said. I don't know how we can. And I'm like, oh my God, I got a pit in my stomach.
Brent's shooting this thing down. I mean, we have the chairman of the board. I don't know how we can support this, is what I thought he was going to say. But he said, I don't know how we can't support such a wonderful program. I want to have the first fully treated watershed in the state of California. So he not only supported it, put his pit in my stomach, but doubled down and said, and go treat the entire watershed. So Brent, I tell that story all the time. That's the kind of support that you've given us as staff and this agency. Most importantly, you've allowed us to think outside of the box and think differently. And you haven't allowed us to, you've told us to. Go think differently, go do things differently. You've set a culture in this agency that we hope to move forward for years. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Anna Newman online. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. And Brent, I echo the sentiments that everyone else has already expressed, but I especially want to thank you for thinking outside of the box and championing water education. Your support for kind of supporting Yuba County in the educational field it will be years before you see the benefits of that. But for every teacher you've supported through the water education program, there's already been hundreds of kids that have been touched by that program, and they're still growing. They go everywhere from kinder to seniors in high school. So I think in the years ahead, that will pay untold dividends for Yuba County. And that's truly, truly a visionary move on your part. And I thank you for the support for that project. And I wish you the best, and I know we'll be seeing you around.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Before we move to board comments on this item, any additional public comment in the room or online? Okay, seeing none. Director Matthews?
Yes, I would caution everyone that the effort that Brent put in was more than you can think about, because he has to go to meetings all over the state, and that takes time. And he's put a tremendous amount of time. And I think we've all benefited from it, and we should thank him very much for the extraordinary amount of time that it takes to do what he did.
Great.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Director Vasquez?
I'd like to thank Brad for setting an example for what a director can do. You never looked at what you can't do. It's a question of how much can we do. And you spent the hours and put the effort in, and you set a great example for future board members to shoot for that goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Director Blazer?
Well, Brett is a great example of the importance of getting outside the bubble of Yuba County. And I can't really say it any better than what Willie already said. He set a very high bar. He's shown that we have a lot of influence in the state, a lot of respect. So, and it's something we really have to keep going. So I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks, Don.
Director Fear?
So I did attend an Aqua meeting, and it was always Brent. So I do commend what you did through Aqua. I was not nearly as incorporated or felt the synergy that you obviously made happen. And so that was a power move that was well played out.
Thank you.
So Brent, I wrote down 3 words on a piece of paper here, and other individuals have already shared all 3 words, which I think really is a testament to how true they are. And I'm going to reiterate them. The first is passion. Your passion for Yuba County is greatly appreciated. I don't think there's anything that you wouldn't do for this county. Next is your vision. People have talked about how you think outside the box. I mean, the water education program is one example, but there are many. And so thank you for that vision. And third is leadership. And that is leadership in this agency, leadership on this board, and probably just as importantly, leadership across this state in the water world, from NACWA to Aqua to with state agencies. And that is greatly, greatly appreciated. And so it's been a privilege to serve with you these last 6 years. And so again, thank you for all 3 of those things. And with that, I will give you the final word.
Great. All right. I've been practicing this speech for 8 years, so expect to take some time. First, it has been one of the honors of my life to serve the Yuba Water Agency. I guess I fell in love with Yuba County in 1959, the day I was born here. And I am still in love with it. I think that it has more potential than any place in the world. And I think that potential is fulfilled by the incredible Yuba Water Agency team. I mean, I can't tell you how proud I am of the people who came to work here, because I ask, and you have made incredible differences. I can't thank you for the support I can't thank you too much for the support you gave me. You know, the crazy guy goes out and says, I think I'll run for Aqua Vice President. And you all said, that's crazy, but we'll support you if you get there. And then you were like, oh my gosh, he made it. And truly, I would not have had any success in the water world, I think, if I had been in a different agency. This agency changes the world, and it's not just here anymore. You know, in 2014, when I came on, I said, let's dream big. Let's change the world of Yuba County. And not realizing that you actually would take it to the level of let's change the world and make Yuba County incredible. And I think that's really what's happening. 8 years ago, can you imagine that we would be in the permit stage for a Costco at the Feather River Mall? No. Can you imagine that we would be finishing the engineering and ready to put wastewater in a combined, with people who hated each other for the last 50 years and building new wastewater line to support the entire South County? Can you imagine that we would be working on the largest forest management program in the country? That didn't happen because of Brent. It happened because you guys dreamed just as big as I did. I would throw an idea down and you'd think, oh, that's crazy. Oh, maybe that's not terrible. Oh, wow. And I think that you guys, it's your passion that has changed Yuba County. And I don't think that passion's going away. I think that you have made a culture of we are a world-class institution. We are world-class and we will be the best. We're going to lead in FIRO. We're going to lead in forest management. We're going to lead wherever we go. And I think that we now have a team of leaders. And Willie, I can't thank you enough for being the perfect person to come in and take over. You have been implementing dreams in ways that nobody thought they could. I am going to hold you accountable and tell you that I hope you're as wrong as Kurt was, because I can remember a discussion with you as I had with Kurt when we began. We're never going to make this much money. You are dreaming. You are crazy. And I said, oh, Kurt, it'll be okay. And we sit here with almost 300 million in reserves. And I had a discussion with Willie maybe a couple of years. It's going to balance out. This is not going to keep going. And yet I don't see any change in natural gas prices. I see the world changing and more power needed. I absolutely see changes in how the water world works, in how movement of water happens. So I don't think you guys have any reason to stop dreaming and being world-class in everything you do. You have the resources to do it. I'm excited about an ARC spillway that's going to protect the people of Yuba County. I'm a whole lot more excited. I want you to get every penny from everybody else we can get. But when you have the resources in the bank to do it, that gives us confidence that we get it done. And I'm proud of that because this team did that. I can't tell you how proud I am, how many lives you have changed of the children in Yuba County. And I think it will change Yuba County, be the biggest change we make in the next 40 or 50 years. When we look back, I begged you and asked you, It's not worth being on this board in 2016 if we don't dream as big as they did in 1959 and when they built the agency. And you all stepped up and did. And I cannot thank you enough for that, because I'm born and bred here. In all likelihood, unless I die second, I'll be buried in Yuba County. Allison and I have a regular discussion about which side of the river we're going to be buried in. But I think that I will see a Yuba County where I see my grandson sitting in the audience right now, and he'll want to stay here because it is an amazing place. And that started with an agency that decided to dream and change the world of Yuba County, and with it, the world. So thanks for the opportunity to serve. I know the agency is in incredible hands and will continue to grow, and I'm thankful. Thanks for the opportunity.
So I'm not sure if it's an action item, but I'm going to call for action anyway on approving the proclamation.
So moved.
Okay, have a first.
Second.
And a second. I'm not sure who was who, but I think Director Fuhrer was the first. But
Andy can have her.
okay, roll the dice.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Vasquez,
Yes.
Director Hasty,
Yes.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Fuhrer,
Yes.
Director Blazier,
Yes.
and Director Fletcher is absent.
Great, thank you. And I'm sure we'll do some pictures maybe after the next agenda item or after the meeting. But next up, we're going to go back to item number 3, recognition of Senator Nielsen for outstanding service and support to the community during his term as California's 4th District Senator. So Senator Nielsen, if you could join me at the podium. Nice to see you too. Okay, we're going to practice my reading here. Go for it. Proclamation recognizing Senator Jim Nielsen for decades of dedicated public service. Whereas Senator Jim Nielsen has been a strong and thoughtful advocate for Yuba County, Northern California, and its people and natural resources. And whereas Senator Nielsen was born in the San Joaquin Valley, earned a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Business from the California State University, Fresno, go Dogs, and was successful rancher and farmer before co-founding a company that utilized rice hulls and rice straw for fuel. And whereas in 1978, Senator Nielsen was first elected to the state Senate and represented his constituents until he was appointed to the Agricultural Labor Relations Board in 1991, and then appointed by Governor Wilson to chair of the California Board of Prison Terms, where he served from 1992 to 2007. And whereas in 2008, he was elected to represent California's 2nd Assembly District, and then re-elected to the Senate in 2013, where he has served since. Given his extensive policy experience, he was appointed to the Little Hoover Commission in 2019. And whereas Senator Nielsen has been a steadfast leader in protecting and strengthening water rights, supplies, and area of origin protections for the Sacramento Valley and its source watersheds, including the Yuba River watershed. And whereas Senator Nielsen has been a tireless advocate for Northern California during its recovery from a series of deadly and catastrophic wildfires, including many of the deadliest and most destructive fires in state history. And whereas in the aftermath of the Oroville spillway failure, he championed the creation of the Oroville Dam Citizens Advisory Commission, a public forum to discuss flood risk issues related to the Oroville Dam and the continued operations of the State Water Project along the Feather River and across California. And whereas Senator Nielsen has worked closely with the Yuba Water Agency and other local agencies in Yuba County and across Northern California to promote and enhance the natural resources, economy, and communities of the region. Now, therefore, let it be known that this proclamation was duly passed by the Board of Directors of the Yuba Water Agency at a regular meeting held December 20th, 2022, and recognizes Jim Nielsen for his extraordinary service to the people of Yuba County.
What a Christmas present.
And it's been a Christmas present for many years to serve 19 different California counties. I've had a rather interesting life. Raised in Fresno County on a 250 cow dairy. Went to become a foreman on a 33,000 acre West Side ranch and then came up here, 1969. And I took leave of my senses in 78 and ran for the state Senate. That's not an overstatement, took leave of senses. But it all worked out. And I've really enjoyed my career in public service and having the opportunity that I've had to represent the region that I represent. And I have watched you grow. For example, it's been discussed by predecessors here, speakers, that how you've fashioned and become a player in the California water policy total. Not just Aqua, who for decades didn't even know who you were, didn't care. But you asserted yourselves and became players in Aqua. And they've begun and now are paying attention to such as you. That's long overdue, but we're there. Really kind of came together, at least in my perspectives, around 2010, as we were fashioning in the legislature a new water plan for California, as well as Proposition 1, the water bond. Allow me to reflect a little bit on that. The water plan, coming simultaneously with putting forth the bond, was very significant because there were major policy changes in water policy in California through the legislation that ensued from that review of our water plan. Particularly, smaller counties were recognized as a part of water in California. I was a Delta senator too along the way, North and Central Delta. But everything for decades in water was about the Delta. Fix the Delta, fix the Delta. Poured billions into the Delta. Didn't get it fixed. Certainly spent a lot of money. But it was all about the Delta. That plan recognized water in California is not just the Delta. There's a north, there's a south. Nobody ever understood there was an east and a west of water in this state, and that we could coordinate, and we had to. All of that. Though New Melones came along the way, it was already kind of a little separate entity into itself. It's a reality, and it's significant. But what was more significant was Prop 1. And you all have been a huge part of that with me. And I kind of fondly actually remember the day I got a call from the major agricultural organizations. Jim, we've met with Governor Brown and we made a deal with him on Prop 1. Oh, what's your deal? Well, he says he'll give us $2 billion. I said, no, I oppose it. Well, you're the author of the bond. Why would you oppose it? Because it's not enough. Why are you selling out? I want 2 dams. That won't, but give us 1. A little sad story about that, though. The bond passed. Overwhelmingly. Surprisingly, maybe. I'm glad to see that happen. The bond passed. We're going to get Sites Reservoir. And I tell you, I've been riding herd on that one, folks. It wasn't going very well for a while, and now we're back on track. We will get Sites Reservoir, I think. I hope in my lifetime. I think that's a possibility. Better be more than that. It's on track. But the extra money that I so desperately sought so they could do Temperance Flat didn't happen. But why? The Central Valley districts, unlike you up here, all they wanted to do was fight with each other. It really frustrated and angered me. And one day I finally told them, I can't help you anymore. You're your own worst enemy. If you can plead your case before the commission, do it, but I'm not going to help. Because all you want to do is fight. And that's all they did, and they are not going to get Temperance Flat. But because we all stuck together, articulated our case, and actually for about almost 40 years or more, we'll get Sites Reservoir. That's really significant. And recognizing all of the different issues in such a vast area, and that water was not just about the Delta, and that there was a water right. A water right. That had been undermined by state government agencies. We were going to diminish, and we actually kind of have, folks. We've diminished water rights down in the state. Not significantly enough, though. So we're still hanging in there, but we have to fight vigorously, and I will continue my fighting to maintain our water rights. But a Pavley bill passed that has harmed that. Sustainable groundwater management. Boy, what a great idea that was. Until you read the dang bill. Because it said counties were going to submit to the Superior Authority. By plan, create your own sustainable groundwater management. Except state of California did not like your plan, they could usurp your authority, which they have and they are doing. And disgustingly to me, and I'm blasting Aqua on this, they took no part in that discussion, in that debate, and they didn't help because they didn't care, I guess. CSAC. Asleep at the wheel. Something as important as this, and they took no issue and did not help. I can't understand or respect that, but we overcame it. Thank goodness. And I like to think that part of that was because of NACWA, you, and others standing up and fighting the good fight. Because they recognized they were not going to get away with doing it on their own. And some of the organizations that should have known better, they were trying to cut their own deals because it was, a quote, the best deal we can get, realized that wasn't the best deal they could get. Now, fortunately, when those ag organizations called me, being author of the bond, and being around a long time, I had the votes. And I knew that. And they didn't. And Governor Brown didn't want to know that. Point to that. Collectively, you can do some things that you don't think are possible. Folks, we did. And your grandchildren will be the beneficiaries. One night in Schwarzenegger's office, we're negotiating the water plan. I got so frustrated, I called him out. All you're talking about is the next election. Don't you realize this is not about that? This is about your grandchildren. And the blank looks around that table told me all I needed to know. Their grandchildren were not on their minds. It was me first, me now, and me forever. That kind of short thinking is why we were in such trouble and had been for so many decades. Now, let me skip forward because I don't want to dominate too much the conversation here. A few weeks ago, I was briefed by the governor's senior staff about some of their policies for the future, particularly related to energy. Now, I was a little surprised one of them. They said, well, we decided we're going to keep Diablo Canyon online. I said, whoa, stop. Did I hear you right? This administration has done nothing but green energy, aeolian energy, and solar. That was the whole game. Are you recognizing that that's not going to cut it? Well, they didn't want to answer that question, but they had to. And I was delighted at the breakthrough. But what was the realization that brought that to their attention? They finally woke up from being Rip Van Winkles to realizing that those grandchildren were going to experience a lot of blackouts. In fact, it wasn't going to be just the grandchildren. It would be on the current governor's watch. They finally realized if we didn't develop supply of energy and water, there's going to be a pretty grim future for the state. Now we're in a good spot, but folks, we're going to have to continue to work together. And the good work you've done, the testimony of your folks here that have been recognized, assert to that. And as I now ride off into the sunrise, as I put it, I have comfort that we're in a good position. And I pledge to you, whatever I'm doing, and Meryl and I are retired, and both of us are now retired, in fact. And the blessing we have home right on the Sacramento River in Red Bluff. So every day I get to look at that river and think about the impact of that river on the state of California. Look at that, folks, as your legacy as well. Your grandchildren may not know what you did in these years, but they will profit and benefit, and they will prosper, as will California, because of your efforts. So I want to thank you very much for the recognition. I thank the board members here for giving me the opportunity to come and appear before you a few weeks ago to say goodbye. I would say goodbye for now. But it has been a great pleasure. It has been an honor. And as I've always said to my wonderful staff, what I have been able to accomplish, what we, as staff family, I call them the Nielsen staff family, has not been legislative bills, has not been debate in the legislature on other kinds of bills. The big difference that we have made is in the daily lives of the people we represent, 1 million citizens, most of whom call us because they have problems with government. And we've been able to help them. And as we've gone around the district this legacy year, the thanks that I've been able to get and my staff have gotten from those constituents, that's what made the difference. And that's what this young farm boy many years ago embarked trying to do. I was a very young farmer, but realized most of my problems farming were not bugs, not water, not employees, government. Every single day, I was struggling against government to get my job done to farm. So I said, well, Jim, what are you doing about it? Oh, I vote. Okay, what else? I had nothing to say. And I decided I needed to get up to the plate. And along that long ride, I've seen so many others do similarly. And I hope that they feel encouraged, and I believe they do, that one person can make a difference if you stand up and fight the good fight. I want to thank you again for being with me on that long run of fighting the good fight. And I do look forward to staying in touch. From our headquarters in Red Bluff on the Sacramento River. God love you and Merry Christmas, and thank you for the resolution.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair, I'll move the resolution.
Okay, I have a first. Is there a second?
A second.
Yeah, I have a first and a second. Roll call vote. Actually, before we take roll call vote, we will check and just check for public comment. Okay, will yes.
Adam Robin, Government Relations Manager. I'll try to be brief. Senator Nielsen, just want to thank you, whether it's in my role here at Yuba-Water Agency or in previous roles, rural places in California, agriculture, folks who not only are concerned with natural resources, but are directly affected by natural resources, whether that's flood risk, fire risk, folks who really are part of the landscape of the Sacramento Valley had no greater champion than you and your staff over the last several years. You mentioned examples of landmark legislation that you worked on and really had a significant impact on, but there are countless incremental, smaller steps, whether it's administrative things, legislative tactics, where you made a remarkable imprint on how the California policy landscape has developed over the past several years. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your willingness to understand and work these issues. I don't think anybody understood them better than you in that building. And, sometimes you might have been tilting against windmills and leaning against institutional pressures, which could not be overcome. But at least your constituents had a voice on some very important issues. So thank you for your service. And finally, Mrs. Nielsen, thank you for sharing the senator with us over the last several decades. He's really made an incredible difference personally and professionally in the lives of so many. So I wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Any board comment? Okay.
Just like to say I really appreciate your farm boy approach to government, because I'm a farm boy myself, and it can be frustrating, and I appreciate all your efforts. Thanks.
Through the chair, I just want to say, Senator Nielsen, I've been in office since 1986, and you've been a part of that as long as I can remember. And you have always led to support our rural communities, and you've always been a great supporter of Yuba County. And just want to say thank you.
Senator, I just want to say thank you for your decades of service to the people of California, and in particular, the people of the North State in Yuba County. So thank you. Okay.
I'd like to also add my compliments to this Charlie Matthews. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Matthews?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Hasty?
Yes.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Fear?
Yes.
Director Blazier?
Yes.
Director Fletcher's absent.
Great. Thank you. Dee Dee, did you want any pictures of the board and the senator or anything? Okay, let's do that real quick. Well, I don't know how long the senator is going to be around. So.
I've not often been a
Okay, Willie, another tough meeting for you to follow.
Yes, it is. I'll do my best. So we did have a series of storms the last couple of weeks. New Bullard's Bar is at 579,000 acre feet. That's 106% of normal year to date. We've had 51,000 acre feet of inflow year to date, which is 47% of average. Like I said, we had a good beginning to December, but it looks dry. It's been dry for a few days. It looks dry for the next 7 days. However, there's a little bit of an indication of a change kind of at the end of the year and beginning of next year. So that's good news. You'll see in your manager's report a bunch of information about Colgate 1, 2, Narrows 1 issues coming back from annual outage and Narrows 1 tripping due to PG&E transmission problems. I'm going to try and give you the quick rundown. For the first 2 weeks of the month, we took Colgate Unit 1 out of service for annual outage. We plan to bring it back last Wednesday afternoon. We were testing it on return to service, and it indicated a field ground. I'm not going to go into all the details of what that means, but very likely it's just something was dirty, and that's what we found. But we were kind of crammed where we had unit 2 coming offline for annual maintenance the next day, and we didn't want to be without a generator. We don't want to have an unreliable generator in unit number 1. So we kind of had to be a little careful with how much we tore into unit 2. We didn't want to completely tear it apart where we had to maybe put it back together so we'd have a unit online, which that's what we ended up doing. We ended up just taking unit 2 down on Thursday and Friday and bringing it back Saturday because unit 1 did in fact, once we put it back online, did in fact show that field ground again. So we knew we had to take it down for a more significant amount of time. So the reality is our return to service on unit 1 and our start of the outage on unit 2 didn't go as planned. What's the impact of that? It's not a great impact. We lost generation opportunity, not generation, but generation opportunity on Friday and part of Saturday. What does that mean? That means we just lost the ability to play in the market. We didn't put out any water and lose the fuel we would burn up or use to generate. We just lost the opportunity to generate those couple of days. So the reality is if the market was the same in any given day, you have a net zero loss. We learned a lot about what we took apart on unit number 1 and fixed it and got it back online yesterday. So now both units are online and doing well. But in the meantime, this is where it gets fun. PG&E had a transmission relay on one of their circuits feeding into Narrows 1, and Narrows 1 tripped offline. A couple weeks ago, they had a similar incident, which didn't cause the unit to trip offline, but caused some fuses. This is what I understand, some fuses in the tram power supply to go bad. And so the guys had to hike in and out of Narrows 1. They got the tram fixed yesterday. They're out at Narrows 1, seeing what's going on with it and trying to get it back into service today. The same line relay that caused Narrows 1 to go down, caused the mini hydro at the base of Pollards to go down. It's still sitting down. It's not down. It's just generating for the dam power supply itself. They'll get to that after they get to Narrows 1. So a very unique report out on the generators. Everything's fine. Your generators are running, except, we'll get into Narrows 1. But that's kind of the synopsis of the last couple of weeks. Lots of phone calls to me, lots of making plans and making different plans on how to get these units back online. Bottom line is the staff did a really good job of understanding water delivery for the environment and our irrigators and making sure we had generators available for flood control. Not that that's an issue yet, but we wanted to make sure we had those and for also generation revenue. So anyway, lots of complications there, but that's the story. Okay. In government relations, last week I was invited to a roundtable discussion in the governor's office to discuss infrastructure opportunities with former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, who has been tapped as the governor's infrastructure advisor. It was a good opportunity to share our work and our priorities, and I highlighted the planned ARC spillway as a leading flood risk reduction and public safety project that's deserving of strong support from the state funding. So. Interesting opportunity to be with a bunch of others in the North State primarily that have big projects like ours. And I got to basically explain the regional benefit of our spillway to get attention from outside funders. In human resources, we have a new operator named Colin Nunnick. Last week when I was up at the plant visiting, I got to meet Colin. He just started last week. He comes from Nevada County. He worked at Nevada County Consolidated Fire Department, and he was an EMT for Sierra Nevada Ambulance. He went to Sierra College in Grass Valley and then Delta College in Bakersfield. And we'd like to welcome Colin. If you get a chance to go up there, meet this young operator. He's a great addition to the team. In communications, KCRA3's morning show, the Peel Democrat and Yuba-Net all covered the grants awarded at the last board meeting. KTVU Fox 2 out of the Bay Area covered our weather balloon releases during the last big storm. And Friday, John James was interviewed by the San Francisco Chronicle for a story about forecast-informed reservoir operations. The story should be published in the next couple weeks. Yesterday, Joanna Lassard met a photographer who's working for Comstocks magazine for a photo shoot for the January issue, which will feature a piece on our watershed health and forest restoration efforts. And also yesterday, Mandy was on 93Q talking about our partnership with the Blue Zones Project to make our workplace and our community healthier. In community relations on Saturday, 7 employees and their family members participated in So You Can's annual food and gift delivery event. In January, we're sponsoring the Farm Bureau Spray Safe training event for farmers to learn the proper pesticide spraying techniques. Our next board meeting is January 3rd.
Thank you. Any board questions about that? Okay.
Willie, that storm was at the 10th. Did that come close to qualifying as an atmospheric river?
Yeah, I believe it did. I think it was a minor scale. If John was working today, I'd ask him. I was at a conference with Marty Ralph, as a matter of fact. I don't know the exact date, but it was the Thursday prior to that storm. And at the conference, Marty Ralph had a visual display, basically a computer screen, of them the Scripps Institute monitoring that storm when it was way out just north of Hawaii. And I said, Marty, is that an atmospheric river? And his statement was, this is the weather system that creates the domino effect that creates the atmospheric river. And they were literally, they had a GIS map of where the airplane was dropping what they call the dropsons, the things that measure the weather data as they go through. It just so happened that, I mean, it was a great coincidence. The evening of this conference, he actually had a team working out in the Pacific measuring that storm as it came through. He did say it would turn into an AR. So I think it was a moderate scaled AR, but to answer your question, yes, Don, I do think it was an AR.
Yeah, it was an impressive storm.
Okay, we'll move on to board member reports. Director Matthews.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Director Vasquez.
Yes, I've got some grandchildren visiting here, and I have no place to take them and show them what the water agency has done over the period of years. And perhaps we could look at taking some of those pictures that are upstairs and actually having a visitor center, kind of like Orville, that might allow our general public to understand what we do. Is that a possibility?
That sounds like an education center. Great job. I totally agree with you, Andy.
We have all the pictures there that would work well out in public. I just thought I need some place other than Grass Valley to take my grandkids.
Director Blazer.
Brett mentioned briefly Costco. I think the permit issuing is imminent, but I'm always afraid to make statements like that. Once that's issued, then I think they're talking 4 months. And so that would put us about April, maybe, for an opening. But there's a lot of things happen after that permit's issued. There's a domino effect of investors buying properties. There's infrastructure, of which we're a part of. The city of Marysville said it's going to cause maybe even a little uptick in their traffic, but it's coming, and it's coming fast.
Director Fuhr.
Yeah. So You Can was a lot of fun. Can't go beat that. And Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you. Director Hasty.
I can't tell you how good it is to hear reports like that on Costco. And I hope you all understand in the agency that it would not be being built if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you. Last report. It's been an honor. It's been fantastic. I hope to see you all often. I'll be around, that's not true. On January 26th, I am leaving for Wyoming, and I will not be back for 3 weeks. But just want to say thanks. I know that the agency's in great hands, and I just want to let you guys know it's been wonderful to work with you, all of you. I have learned as much as you have learned, so I just want to say thanks, and the opportunity has just been amazing. Thanks again to staff, and thank you for the opportunity to play in the water world at a level that a kid from, Arboga ever dreamed. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Brent. No additional comments from me. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. And Brent, if you'd like any pictures, just let us know.
That I have.
Recording stopped.
Thanks, sir.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Skip's Marysville Music Cafe with lessons in person and personalized. Instruments including guitars and amps, horns, strings, strings for instruments, and a myriad of music and sound equipment. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe.